We move on to the sixth and final round, the Natterjack Enduro. Usually this is the penultimate round, but this year the Beacon's date had been brought forward, so the Natterjack was the final round of the series. Soon after the Hafren Enduro, Rob Sartin put in a protest about those results. Well, he had lost his bike and hadn't scored any points. What would happen, no one really knew, but it would all depend on this final round. In the 125s, Mark Vaughan was leading the series. He was 11 points up on Tim Lewis. And in third place, Joel Mitson, who was 16 points down on Tim. In the overall championship, most people thought that the Hafren results would stand, but it had been very unfortunate for Rob Sartin. He was quite surprised to hear his bike talking.
9:58 precisely.
It's a pity the bike hadn't shouted to him at the Hafren when it was drowning. Just an update on those placings. Carl Tiley in fourth place on 109. David Knight on 115. Rob Sartin's score 119. And the leader, A.D. Smith, with a score of 147. Everyone congratulating him today, not because he was leading the series, but because he'd recently become a father, a baby girl called Abigail. The position as follows, with the Hafren result, AD 28 points in front, and without the Hafren, only 8 points, and of course the rider in second place is Rob Sartin. The go-in at the Natterjack, not too difficult. Most of the action takes place on the very sandy special test. In the four-stroke class, a good battle between Phil Smithson and John Deacon. John had won 6 out of the 8 days in the series. Phil had been unlucky. He hadn't finished at the Dartmoor, and that had cost him 25 points. He didn't finish the first day. Here at the Natterjack, John was just that little bit quicker on the test each time. In the 125s, Mark Chapman finished down in fourth place. His second test was rather slow. He was averaging about 4 minutes 56. And that slow test, 5 minutes 15. Joel Mitson finished in third place. Joel averaging around 4 minutes 56. Tim Lewis desperately needed the points this weekend, but he finished runner-up in the class. He was rather slow on his second test, 4 minutes 53. And on the other 3 tests, he was averaging around 4 minutes 45. It was Mark Vaughan who scored maximum points, very consistent test times. His score had now gone up to 170, and Tim Lewis was on 156. Vaughan now only had to finish day 2, and he would be the 125cc champion for the second year running. At the end of the day, in the work area, Tim Lewis had a busy time. His moose had broken up, so that had to be replaced. It was coming out in bits. Mark Vaughan was looking very pleased with himself. In the 250s, it wasn't the best of days for A.D. Smith. He finished in 5th place and 5th overall. He'd a couple of relatively slow tests. Someone said he'd spent the last few days pushing a pram around. So A.D. scored only 11 championship points. He was giving Rob Sartin a great chance to get back in. But Rob wasn't going much quicker than A.D. Well, he did beat him by 12 seconds, but Rob finished in 4th place. So Rob scored 13 points. That was 2 more than A.D., and the difference between the two now was 26 points. In 3rd place on this first day of the Natterjack, Wyn Hughes from Llanidloes. I didn't think that Wyn liked these sandy conditions, but he had been putting in a lot of training. At the end of the day, he was 2.5 seconds up on Rob Sartin. And the rider in second place on a Honda 250, it was Carl Tiley. After 3 tests, Carl was averaging around 4 minutes 35. Going into the last test, he was a good 20 seconds up on Win Hughes, but he must have made a mistake because at the end of the day, he only beat Win by 4 seconds. Back at the work area, Carl thought there was something wrong with his handlebars, and John Shirt agreed.
Well, this one's back.
You're down in the sand, Carl.
This one's back now. Are they Lamson ones, or are you not bothered?
Very nice on the other. A lammy's nice.
Really?
Would Carl have new handlebars for day 2? Well, if he was going to beat the championship leader, David Knight, he would need more than handlebars. David flew round this special test on all 4 occasions. Where the other competitors were riding in the sand, he seemed to be on the top. Knight won all 4 tests, and not by a few fractions of a second. At the end of the day, he was 37 seconds up on Carl Tiley. There were other riders on the course who didn't even see him go past. Remember, David rode at this event last year in the expert class, and he won it easily. So David scored maximum points, taking his score up to 135, and that meant that he was now in second place. David was 3 points up on Rob Sartin, but 23 points down on A.D. Smith. A brilliant ride by David Knight. Could he do the same tomorrow? If David did win day 2 and A.D. Smith failed to finish, that certainly would affect the final placings. Lap of honour tomorrow, A.D.? A lap of honour tomorrow?
Yeah.
We think.
If the results stand.
The expert riders were doing 3.5 laps on the course and 3 timed laps on the test. Peter Hannis had already won the open 4-stroke class, and the winner today was A. Coker from Australia. No more details than that. The top places still had to be decided in the 400cc class though, and number 32 was Stephen Grimshaw. He'd got 115 points. David Lott was number 33, out of it just a little bit. His score 78, but the rider who was leading was Chris Tett from Dudley. He's number 34 today, and Chris's score 129. At the Natterjack, it's all down to test times. Chris Tett was averaging about 5 minutes 28. He finished 3rd in the class. The runner-up slot went to a newcomer, R. Carey from Weybridge. And the winner, Stephen Grimshaw, he'd had a great ride really to finish 6th overall in the expert class. In the 125s, number 46, Stuart Mundell, finished in 4th place and 11th overall. 1 place above Stuart was Peter Batt from Fleet. Peter beat Stuart by just over 8 seconds. And runner-up in the 125s was Will Midgley from Skipton. It had been very close between him and Peter, only about a second in it. William's total score was now 105. Peter Batt was on 110, and that was the same score as Stuart Mundell. And who won the 125cc class? Well, it was Mark Gammons, number 50. It was a great day for him because he finished 3rd overall in the expert class. Some of you may be wondering what happened to Win Hope. Well, he's over there on the ground. He crashed with one of the army riders. Hopey was pinned under his bike, but neither of them were hurt. It cost Hopi quite a few seconds, and it put him way down the field. And what of Simon Evans, the top expert 125cc rider this season? Well, today he was on a TM 250. His bike was packed in a crate, ready to go to Australia for the 6 days. How was Simon getting on with the 250? I had a word with him at one of the checks.
Sorry?
The bike all right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a handful of this event.
Yeah.
It's a better event to come to, I think.
A bit more power, isn't it?
Oh, just a bit, yeah. Just trying to get used to the weight as well. It's got a lot more weight and I'm going flat out down the straight and don't realise you're going to brake a lot earlier. Never mind, I'll keep trying.
Simon finished 4th overall. Hopi wasn't the only one to fall off on the test. This is Tim Hunt. Fortunately, it's quite a soft landing in the sand. I saw Tim later on and asked him what went wrong.
I haven't been
You went straight over the top, didn't you? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, but it was there.
I know.
In the 250s, the Genus Honda rider Trevor Jones finished in 5th place and 7th overall. He was just half a second behind his teammate Stephen Grimshaw. After 3 special tests, number 72 Ian Mundell was just over 2 seconds quicker than Trevor Jones to take 4th place in the class. And Simon Evans, who we saw a few moments ago, finished 3rd in the class. Runner-up, number 79, Steve Saunders, all 3 tests under 5 minutes. That gave him a lead of over 20 seconds on the rest of the field. Unfortunately, Steve had missed a couple of rounds in the series, so his total score was not too high. And the top expert rider on this first day of the Natterjack, Cy Higgins. Like Saunders, all 3 of Higgins's tests were under 5 minutes. In fact, he won all 3. And Cy beat Steve by nearly 12 seconds. Apparently, he wasn't feeling at his best today. He thought he'd got the flu.
How are you feeling? Not very good. Not very. I've had the flu.
Winning this first day of the Natterjack meant that Cy was now the top expert rider for 1998. He couldn't be beaten. It was quite a long day for the Clubman riders, 6.5 hours, including 3 timed laps on the special test. Most of them were clean on the go-in, but surprisingly 22 failed to finish. Some of them may not have been used to the sand. It can be quite testing and annoying. I know you need to kick the bike to start it, but I didn't think it was like that. James Gammons was in quite a hurry, but the sand pulled him down. In the Open Clubman class, number 177, Ian Proudfoot finished 3rd. This was his first championship round. In 2nd place, Terry Smith from Ringwood, riding an in-chains TM 300. And the winner, Michael White from South Molton. He had ridden most of the championship rounds, but hadn't finished all of them. Number 201, Neil Wiseman, was runner-up in the Open 4-stroke class. And the winner there was number 203, Chris Boyce. Number 180, William Buchanan, was runner-up in the 350 4-stroke class. And the class winner, number 181, Paul Mayle, he'd already won the series. In the over 40s, Steve Colville was still in with a chance of winning the series, but he needed to win both days here at the Natterjack. Steve was off the pace a bit on his tests, and he finished 3rd in the class. Runner-up was number 98, Pat Wills. He couldn't win the series, though, because he'd missed a couple of rounds. And the winner in the over 40s, number 93, Terry Thomas, he beat Pat Wills by nearly 7 seconds. And Terry was now leading Steve Colville by 11 points, but anything could happen on the second day. In the 125s, KTM rider Neil Boyd finished in 4th place. Neil was now in 3rd place in the series, and it looked as though that was where he was going to finish. And 3rd in the 125s, a rider we hadn't seen before, M. Quayle from the Isle of Man. His first ride in a championship round. Let's hope we would see more of him next year. And the top 2 places in the class, filled by the Joneses. Number 124, Dylan, was runner-up. Dylan wasn't really used to the sandy conditions. Test times of 5:28, 5:10 and 5:23. Yes, he made a couple of mistakes, but still managed to finish 4th overall. And the top 125cc rider, it was Edward Jones. Edward was 2nd overall on test 1, also 2nd on test 2. On the last test, although it wasn't his fastest lap, he won that one. With the final day to come, Edward was 22 points up on Dylan, so he had to finish the second day. In the 250s, Johnny Summers finished in 4th place. It took him 2 laps to get used to the sand. Andy Foster, number 153, finished just above Johnny to take 3rd place in the class. Runner-up in the 250s, James Newstead. It looked as though he was going to finish runner-up in the series now because Steve Melville and Dylan Hughes weren't riding this weekend. James had 3 good tests, averaging around 5:07, and he finished 3rd overall in the Clubman class. And the top 250cc rider, Chris Hockey from Colchester. Chris had more or less won the series before coming to this event. This weekend he was hoping to finish the top Clubman rider of the year, but he was up against it a bit because Edward Jones was out in front. Chris hadn't scored at the Isker, and that meant at the start of the Natterjack he was 42 down on Edward Jones. So Chris wasn't going to win the series, but he was the top 250cc rider. Day 2, very similar to day 1, but the course and the special test ridden in the opposite direction. In the over 40s, number 88, John Johns, had a good ride on this second day to finish 3rd in the class. Number 98, Pat Wills, had finished runner-up on day 1 and again on day 2. And the winner of the over 40s class at the Natterjack, number 93, Terry Thomas. Terry had also won the series, although he'd missed out at the Isker. And what happened to Terry's rival, Steve Colville? Well, he finished 4th on this second day. And at the end of the series, Steve was 18 points down on Terry. In the open 4-stroke class, Mark Godsall finished 3rd on this second day. He was beaten by number 197, Tony Fitzgerald. Both those riders hadn't gone well on day 1. It was Chris Boyce who won the class this weekend and also the series. In the 350 4-stroke class, William Buchanan finished 3rd today. And number 182, Gary Waugh, was runner-up. And the class winner, and of course the winner of the series, Paul Mayle. In the open Clubman class, Clive Passingham had finished 4th yesterday and 4th again today. And he also won the series by quite a big margin. Number 172, Michael White, was runner-up today, but he'd won the first day, and that meant that he was the best open rider. Today's winner was number 175, Terry Smith. In the 125s, James Gammons had a much better day, finishing 4th in the class. For the weekend, James finished in 12th place overall. 3rd in the 125s on this second day was M. Quayle from the Isle of Man. He was going to be a rider to look out for next year. He finished 5th overall this weekend. And runner-up in the 125s, number 124, Dylan Jones from Llanidloes. Not just runner-up for the weekend, but runner-up for the series. If Dylan's cousin Edward hadn't been riding in the same class, then Dylan would have won easily. Of course, the top 125cc rider at the Natterjack, Edward Jones, and he is the top Clubman rider of the year. This weekend, though, he has to settle for runner-up, beaten by Chris Hockey. Edward and Dylan have dominated the Clubman class, and they're going to be champions of the future. In the 250s on this second day, John Beer finished in 4th place, and for the weekend he was 7th overall, and in the series he finished in 5th place in the 250s. Johnny Summers was 4th yesterday, 3rd today, and he finished 6th overall. Johnny had ridden only 3 championship rounds, and yet he finished 6th overall. And runner-up in the 250s on both days, James Newstead. Also, runner-up in the series, some of the opposition didn't turn out this weekend. And the top 250cc rider on this second day, and the man who took the Premier Award this weekend, Chris Hockey. It's been his first season in the championship, and he finishes runner-up overall in the Clubman class. I would think next season that both Chris and Edward Jones will be up into the experts, so that should be interesting. The final day of the series for the expert riders, and it's quite exciting in the 4-stroke class. Stephen Grimshaw is in 2nd place, and he's in with an outside chance of winning. Finishing in 3rd place today, number 31, R. Carey. The series leader, Chris Tett, needed to finish. He had to score some points, but he went very well and finished runner-up in the class. He did make one small mistake. I think he only stopped to have a word with our cameraman. So Chris Tett, riding a Yamaha 400, the top expert 4-stroke rider for 1998. It was Stephen Grimshaw who won the class this weekend, though. He had a great ride and finished 7th overall. In the 125s, Winhope managed to avoid the soldiers today and finished 4th in the class. He'd been up and down a bit this season, not too good at the Breckland and the Beacons, but he was 2nd at the Isker and he'd won the Hafren. In the series, there was quite a battle going on between William Midgley, number 45, and Stuart Mundell, number 46. On this second day, Midgley finished 3rd in the class. He was beaten by Mundell, but it was only a fraction of a second. And so at the end of the series, William Midgley finished 4th overall. Peter Batt was in 3rd place, and Stuart Mundell 2nd. Of course, we all knew that Simon Evans was the top 125cc expert rider. And the best 125cc rider this weekend, Mark Gammons, it would be his best result of the season, and it meant that he was 3rd overall at the Natterjack. In the 250s, Ian Mundell had a good ride to finish 4th overall, and in the series he was going to finish runner-up. Ian may not have done quite so well if Neil Williams had ridden this weekend. Neil hadn't got a bike to ride. That was in a packing case on its way to Australia. And third in the 250s on this second day of the Natterjack was Gary Flowers from the Isle of Man. He'd been very unfortunate yesterday. He'd somehow lost a minute, may have checked in early. Although Gary failed to score on one of the championship days, he still finished fourth overall in the series. It was Steve Saunders who finished runner-up in the experts yesterday, and he did the same again today. For the season, Steve finished down in 6th place. If he'd ridden all the rounds, it would have been much higher. Cy Higgins had won the first day, and he was planning to win the second, but he wasn't looking quite his usual self. He nearly lost it on that corner. He won the first test without much trouble. He also won the second test. On the third lap he looked a little bit ropey. Well, we knew he'd got the flu. He was coming up to that corner for the third and final time. And it got the better of him this time. He was lost in a cloud of dust. Cy was quickly back on the bike and going again. It wasn't going to make much difference to his result. It just goes to show that champions do make the occasional mistake. Had A.D. Smith won the championship, well, a good result on day 2 would certainly make sure of that. In the 125s, Mark Vaughan had now increased his lead over Tim Lewis. The gap was 14 points. But on Sunday morning, Tim wasn't on the line. I'm not sure what happened to Tim, but he didn't start on this second day. That meant that Vaughan couldn't be beaten, so he was the 125cc champion again. Carl Tiley was looking very stiff this morning, nothing to do with Viagra. He crashed heavily late yesterday afternoon. Not surprisingly, he didn't go the distance on this second day. This was Rob Sartin's last chance of regaining his title. Had he left it too late? It was Smithy who'd got the talking bike this morning.
Jump all over that.
I don't think A.D. was quite with it this morning. If the Hafren result stands, then A.D. has now won the series. If that result is scrapped, then A.D. has a 3-point lead over David Knight and 6 points over Rob Sartin. In the 4-stroke class, Phil Smithson had it all to himself on this second day. John Deacon wasn't riding. John had won the series yesterday. The overall difference between the two, though, was only 6 points. In the 125s, number 10, Tea House from Blandford, finished in 3rd place. The Natterjack was his only championship event. Runner-up in the 125s on this second day, Joel Mitson. And because Tim Lewis was out of the points on this second day, Joel was to finish runner-up in the series. And the top 125cc rider this weekend, Mark Vaughan from Knighton. He also finished 6th overall. And of course, Vaughan regains the 125cc title, which he won last year. Mark riding for the Honda Britain team. At the end of the day, when he came into the finish, Tim Lewis was one of the first to congratulate him. In the 250s, Rob Sartin had to beat A.D. Smith by at least 6 points and hoped that the Hafren result would be scrapped. That was asking for an awful lot. Rob wasn't riding quite as well as he did in 1997. He'd crashed a couple of times earlier this season, and that might have been the reason. Even small mistakes like that were quite costly. On this second day, he finished 4th in the 250s. Smithy knew that even without the Hafren result, he was still 6 points up on Rob, so just needed a good result today. And that's what he got. He finished in 3rd place, 2 points up on Sartin. So AD was going to be the new British champion. It was Carl Tiley who'd finished runner-up on the first day, but here on the first test this morning he crashed heavily and then retired. So it was Wyn Hughes who took the runner-up spot. Wyn was having a great ride in the sand and he finished runner-up overall for the weekend. In the series, Wyn finished down in 6th place. It was the Dartmoor Enduro that let him down. And the winner of the Natterjack on this second day, the rider from the Isle of Man, David Knight. David had finished the first day streets ahead of everyone else. He'd won all 4 tests and he went on to do the same on this second day. This had been David's first season in the championship class. He'd finished runner-up at the Beacons and won both the Dartmoor and the Natterjack. It was just the Hafren Enduro which had let him down. He drowned the bike and failed to finish. So in the series, David Knight finishes runner-up, just 18 points down on A.D. Smith, and if the Hafren result had been scrapped, those positions would have been reversed. At the end of the day, the usual celebrations, not a bottle of bubbly, but at least it's fizzy water. And as A.D. Smith comes into the finish, a round of applause for the new British champion. A.D. has been trying to win this title, I would think, for at least a dozen years. Not a bottle of champagne for the champion, but a large bucket of water. And it's a double celebration for A.D., not only British champion, but also a father. And here's his baby daughter, Abigail. Surely he deserves another bucket of water. And who better to make the presentation than his spanner man, Mike Davis. Many congratulations to AD and all the other winners. Can he win again next season, or will it be David Knight? We'll have to wait and see. So those final results for 1998. A.D. Smith is a British champion. Runner-up David Knight. In the expert class, Cy Higgins takes the Premier Award, and runner-up Simon Evans. And in the Clubman class, the top award there goes to Edward Jones, and runner-up Chris Hockey. I should like to thank everyone who's helped me throughout the season. It's very difficult to film Enduros, and without the cooperation of the organisers, the timekeepers, the marshals and other people, we just wouldn't have any film at all. Many thanks also to all the riders who've taken part. This has been a very tough season, but don't let that put you off. I'm sure it will get easier next year.